Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the first 10X community podcast of 2025. Perfect guest for this to head into the new year. Very excited to have Amrita here, who is currently a consultant on, sounds like lots of different go-to-market projects. Previously, VP of marketing at massive names companies like Zapier and ClickUp and Superside, and really impressive growth of taking companies like Superside from 2 million to 45 million in ARR. So very excited to dive into conversation here around really everything, building growth engines, demand engines, expanding up market, focusing on execution. So before we dive in, just for folks that are new to the podcast, welcome everyone. Very excited to have you. This is a live podcast, so you can ask any questions that you want throughout the conversation. You can write in chat or write the Q&A. We'll make sure to follow up. And I know some of you submitted questions beforehand, which we will get to as well. So very excited. Why don't we start with a quick intro?
Sure. Yeah, let's do it. Not much to say except I've been in marketing and growth and sort of like tech my whole career. I think I'm like I'm told I'm a little bit of an anomaly where I've worked at like super early stage companies, but I've also worked at like these like sort of like scale ups, like Series D, Series E companies. I've kind of done all of it. And I've also done like classic PLG companies. And I've also done like classic sales led companies. So I have like all of this like variety of experience, and I chalk that up to like I just get bored really fast. So I kind of like hop around trying to learn like new industries, new business models. And I'm obsessed with sort of like the unit economics of how everything works in the back end. Like how do you actually like make a business? Like I love that. So yeah, here I am. And 2025, I have decided I'm going to bet on myself. And yeah, I'm going to be helping out, Series ABC companies sort of grow faster. That's my whole thing. And I'm going to be operating in my zone of genius. So very excited to be here. I'm happy that 2025 is here. I'm very happy with this decision. I'm really happy to meet you, Alexa.
That is awesome. And I definitely think you are a unicorn if you can do early stage and later stage and PLG and top down sales. So very excited to dive into all of that. But maybe before we dive into specific go-to-market growth strategy and what you'll be doing now advising Series ABC companies, tell us about this career path, because you've been, like you said, small companies, big companies, top down sales, product led sales. How'd you navigate all of that, and how'd you get started in marketing?
Right. Well, I started in marketing without knowing that I was starting in marketing. I guess I never really like thought about it as like a career choice. I just sort of fell into it. Actually, like the fun thing is that a lot of my sort of acquaintances and friends who are like I respect and are good marketers never like went to like marketing school or anything. Like almost all of them are similar to me. Like we have computer science backgrounds or we have like engineering backgrounds. I know a couple of people who are extremely technical marketers um, that have like unusual backgrounds like psychology or political science or whatever. So, you know, I think like education and marketing like kind of don't necessarily have to jive. Like marketing is really like extremely like statistical and data driven and tools driven and obviously a little bit of buyer psychology as well. So I think it's like a very good generalist sport and anybody can do marketing. And that's just sort of how I fell into it. Somebody at this internship that I was doing said, "Hey, you speak good English." This is back in India. I had just finished school and I was like helping out with some stuff. And my boss was just like, "I'm starting this new department and like, why don't you come help out?" But I didn't know it was marketing. I was just like, "All right, cool." So that's just sort of how I fell into it. And then I just fell in love with it. But I've kind of like, climbed the ladder, so to speak. Like my first job was like a marketing specialist and at a small tech company in Canada. And then you just learn, etc. My whole, I guess, mindset has been learn as much as possible, be super curious, ask a lot of questions. And I know I can be annoying. Like my friends tell me this all the time. It's like, "Oh my God, can you stop with the questions?" But I'm always just so curious about certain things and trying to connect the dots. Um, but I think like the best, most important thing for good marketers is to be, and this sounds like a little bit yucky because a lot of us don't love the concept of money, but it's important to be commercially minded. And if you want to be a CMO or head of marketing or head of growth or whatever, that is like the key thing. You can be super analytical, you can be super creative, you can be everything in between. Um, you can, you can be like a fast learner and all of that. But if you're not commercially minded, if you're not like mildly obsessed with, well, how is this going to make money? How can I turn this into an offer? Is this something that a buyer or like an influencer is going to love and like kind of enter our funnel or whatever? If you're not obsessed with that, you're probably not going to be a good marketer. So I feel like that's a framework that I've just used for a long time without knowing that it was a framework.
Yeah, you covered a lot of different things around what got you into marketing and what makes you a good marketer. I heard being revenue obsessed. I heard knowing data and tools and all of this kind of the more process oriented. I also heard curiosity. And for what it's worth, I agree with all of that. And then I also heard you say, marketing isn't like a trained skill. Like you don't have to go to school for it. So all the stuff you learned, do you feel like a lot of marketing is learnable? Or a lot of it's kind of innate skills like curiosity, you just kind of have to be born with it to make you a good marketer?
No, it's definitely learnable. The one key criteria though is that I use this term like Renaissance man a lot, like it's or woman, where you kind of this is a working theory, not been proven, but you kind of have to have a variety of interests, across a number of things. I think to be a great marketer, kind of, like if I'm not saying that like I'm perfectly aligned with this myself, but if I think about all of my hobbies that kind of intersect with marketing, there's quite a few of them. Like I love art, I paint, I sing. I'm a little bit into martial arts. I also just like I follow like a lot of these like weird statistical data accounts on Instagram and stuff, like, where they like have these like cool charts that visualize data. I just love that stuff. So there's just like a few things that I think, people can identify as their sort of zone of genius or their zone of excellence, and like lean into that. So yeah, just like anyone that's listening that wants to be in marketing or already is in marketing, but wants to just be like the badass, like marketer or growth person in the future, just like everything in your life, anything that you're particularly like into is a good thing. So like just lean into that because that's going to help you with your marketing and your observe, how you observe things, how you interpret things, all of that's going to help you.
I need to learn about all these separate hobbies on another call. I'm impressed how you fit all of this in. It's seem to be good at everything.
Not really, but my husband teased me and says like you have all the 80-year-old grandma hobbies because I'm like into gardening and art and like all of the stuff that's like lo-fi, chill.
Great. I love it. Will the natural transition into PLG and sales led from gardening. But you do have a unique perspective having worked in both types of org. So, how do you think this perspective shapes how you build go to market strategies? Because, a lot of people have one perspective as they advance in their career because they're staying within the PLG world or the other world. So, what do you think is the maybe pros, cons, or what does it look like to have both?
Yeah. So I feel like most companies end up choosing which path they want to go down. Like seldom do you find companies that are like, we're going to do both at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, which makes sense. Like you want to perfect one thing and then go to the next. Um, I'll give the example of ClickUp just really quickly because they're like one of the unique companies that had a tremendous success with PLG. Like they had a robust freemium product. People gravitated to it. In fact, like users would say to us things like, "Oh my god, like I've used, whatever Asana or Monday and like I've never seen so much value given away for free." Like some version thereof, right? So they're very robust premium product and that attracted like a ton of people. And then of course the job to be done there was like the like how do you convert them to paying customers? How do you keep the NDR alive, so on and so forth. But at the time that I joined, the company was like, wait a second, our retention will be a lot better. Retention is the name of the game, right? Long term, particularly if you're trying to go public. Our retention is going to be amazing if we can crack mid-market and enterprise, because that's where those segments were where retention was good. But we hardly had any mid-market enterprise customers. So it's like a chicken and the egg thing. So then the company's decision was, great, let's stand up like a sales team, let's stand up a demand gen team, all content marketing, all of the stuff that it takes to like actually sell to these like sort of buying committees while running the PLG motion at the same time. the trouble with that is that now you've built a company that's particularly good with one or two segments, not good with these other segments, and the unit economics are completely different. Um, when finance crunched the numbers, I think I can say this out loud. They gave me like, yeah, not only did I have like a target in terms of mid market and enterprise pipeline, but also the cost that they would tolerate for that pipeline. So every opportunity had to be under $1,000. I had to source every opportunity for under $1,000, and our AC was like 15K, 20K, that kind of thing. And that is extremely hard to do in a PLG context when nobody's used to even spending some, like 1,000 is insane for them, right? And it's like, to me, I was like, yeah, of course we're going to spend $1,000 to make $15,000. Like that make total sense to me. In fact, more. But that was like a really, really hard decision. And it's really hard to kind of build a marketing, like a full-fledged marketing muscle around that. So my biggest takeaway I'm learning is, um, SLG to PLG is actually weirdly easier than PLG to SLG because of the way the unit economics just work out. Your efficiencies that you're used to with PLG just don't carry over, and that's a really hard pill for PLG companies to swallow. So if you go in with your eyes wide open and like the numbers make sense, the math makes sense, like this much in, this much out, this is going to be your payback period. It's probably not going to be like 8 months or whatever. It's probably going to be 15 months. If you're okay with all of that, great, go for it. But if you're not okay with all of that, you have to reassess.
Yeah, it's a great point, and I like to say to people, I think grass is always greener. People that are going from PLG to SLG, they are jealous of the other way around, and vice versa. Both are hard. Uh, I think it is interesting. The other thing around unit economics that I've seen, or beyond just the challenge being unit economics, is changing the culture of a company. Because PLG companies going to sales, it's a shift. They haven't been selling before. It's just been the product sells itself. We don't need sellers, and then you have to kind of introduce that. Versus the other way around, it's sellers need to zoom out and if you're going from SLG to PLG, sellers need to kind of pump the brakes and let the deals take a little bit longer for lower ACV. So I agree. It's super hard both ways, and maybe it's a hot take what you said, but I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you know what? I'll circle back with you when I end up working with the company that's gone like SLG to PLG, I guess. I mean, we did a little bit of that with Superside. We kind of went back and forth actually. So hence my thoughts. But yeah, it's hard both ways. It's just like the way that the math is and the culture, like you said, such a good point. And the kind of talent that you have on the team, the bench that you have, is also very different for both styles of businesses. And so, that's tough. That's really, really hard for companies. And so the one recommendation I've made to a friend who's kind of attempting the same is that before you hire any salespeople, like prove to yourself that you can acquire these accounts at scale. And so I would almost recommend standing up like the few marketing functions you might need to do the SLG thing properly before you hire sales. It doesn't quite work out like that. Zapier, ClickUp, everywhere that I've been, we hire a bunch of salespeople and marketing kind of at the same time, and it's this hodgepodge of stuff. But I would, if I was a founder, I would probably do them. There's an order of operations that makes sense to me, at least.
Definitely. And when you're in a PLG world, the strategies and tactics are more related to B2C versus when you're in this SLG, it's more B2B. So can you talk about the difference between the tactics? And I know you have a thesis around them converging.
Yeah. I kind of feel like they are converging in the market in general. The tactics, like the channels themselves, are actually kind of all of the same. It kind of comes down to I can only call it like positioning. In the B2B context, you're actually positioning for a pain that a team or a department or a business is facing, not an individual, because usually it's not an individual decision. Sometimes it can be an individual decision, but typically you're selling to some kind of buying committee, even if it's informal. Like there's always like an economic buyer who's signing the check, but there's always like the people that are going to be using it, the people that are going to be like advocating for it, so on and so forth. So it's like this informal buying committee, and you're like really positioning for them and that specific use case or that pain. B2C is like a lot more straightforward because you actually only have to worry about typically one consumer. Sometimes it's like a couple of people, but typically it's one consumer. So the positioning matters a lot. And also in B2B, at least what I've experienced is that there's like the deal that you land, and then there's the expansion opportunity within that same account and company. And expansion, in theory, could arguably be even more important than the land deal. Like in the case of ClickUp again, because it's the type of product that anybody in the company can use, that sort of wall to wall expansion is like super important. So we didn't care if the land deal was like 5K, 10K, whatever. We knew that we could go wide. Not necessarily the case with all other companies. Like even with Zapier, like typically it's not everybody in the company using it, right? There's like a couple of key people that are operationally focused. So I think that's like another key differentiator in B2B. And then the last thing I'll say is the channels are all roughly the same. However, I think that like if I think about how I would work with, let's just take social media as an example, how I would work TikTok, how I would work with influencers, all of that just shifts ever so slightly. It the kind of the details sort of in the execution of it and the message that you're putting out there and who you're trying to appeal to. Um, um, that's sort of the nuance, but the channels are all roughly the same, and there's a lot of convergence of the same sort of tactics. Like a lot of stuff that works in B2C works in B2B because at the end of the day, we are all sort of consumers. Yeah. Okay.
It's a great point, and I appreciate the fact that it's converging, and uh, technology allows that. The better the tech gets, the more kind of consumer grade that the enterprise technology gets. It also helps with that a ton.
Totally.
Um, so you're a consultant doing this for lots of different companies, but historically you've entered companies when they're at a strategic shift or they're right at the about to have this rapid growth moment. When you enter into a company like this, what are some of the first things you assess before going into growth mode?
Yeah, that's such a good question. That's really tough. I mean, there's sort of every company is at a different growth stage, different sort of product market fit stage. Really, like even in the interview process, like I'll just kind of figure out, hey, like what is the current sort of revenue funnel or flywheel, and understand all of the conversion and the drop offs. Because like I want to make sure like we can do something about it, that it's not like this like innate like thing. And then I usually like obsess over like the one metric which I love, which is like just payback period. Like how quickly can you pay back the dollar that you spent? If the payback period is like low enough, like typically I look for like 6 to 8 months. If you're early stage, like 6 to 8 months or under is like amazing. If you're like later stage, you can tolerate like a lot more. But if it's like series A or B, if you're like at 6 months, I mean, I just met a founder the other day. His payback period for this AI product is like 1 month. And I'm just like, dude, you're leaving money on the table. If your payback is 1 month, this is like a cash cow. Like go, like just like start spending right away. So sometimes too efficient a payback is not a good thing either. So I assess like the payback and just like try to figure out, okay, do we like cut back? Is it like an efficiency play? Is it like more like a growth play? Like, can we throw money at this problem? Um, and then also look at, if does it differ by segments? And then the last thing I try to assess is how well the team knows their ICP and their buyer personas. I think most companies say they know it really well, but when you get into it, they don't. There's like lots of nuance that's like missing. And like that's actually like very, very key before you like pour fuel on the fire. So, that's like just a conduit understanding. Is it true product market fit? Or maybe they have price market fit, maybe they have problem market fit, but maybe they don't have full-fledged product market fit yet. So those are like the three sort of pillars or buckets of things that I like tend to look at. And then that helps me formulate a plan of like, can this be grown? Can this be grown efficiently? And like, do I want to do this? So yeah, that's
Yeah, I love the focus on one metric, going deep. I also love the call out that product market fit isn't the only thing. You also have all these other levers of go to market fit, of pricing and market and segment and everything else that goes into that whole big puzzle in order to make it work. Um, so then once you kind of figure that out, I know you have a framework. I think the explore exploit framework for growth opportunities. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, yeah. Have you've probably heard of this, Alexa. You know that famous problem of the multi-arm bandit? Have you heard that? It's like a
Not.
Oh, okay. Guys, Google this. It's a rabbit hole you want to go down, okay? There's like a really good Medium post on it by some guy. Um, I'll spare you the details, but basically it's explore and exploit is a simple framework for just saying if you don't have anything, if you don't know what's working, you don't even have any programs stood up, obviously you're not going to go deep in one area. You kind of need to do the exploration. It's sort of like the gold rush, back in the day when people were like looking for gold in rivers. You're not just going to go to like one river and spend all your time there. You kind of go from river to river. You have like your pan, you like look at the water. And then when you get like this like feedback, some kind of signal that says, oh, maybe there's more gold here, then you say, okay, I'm going to like put up my tent. Now I'm going to spend like the next 3 days like looking for gold here, right? It's the same thing. So you explore, you like spread out all your bets a little bit, right? You have to have some kind of hypothesis, some working hypothesis, but you spread out your bet. And then when you get feedback or some kind of signal, then you say, all right, I'm going to pause on all of these other things and I'm going to go deep in these couple of areas and like really try to scale that. A classic example of that was when we were at Superside and like we were super early. We didn't know anything. We kind of had a hypothesis for our ICP. We didn't really know it that much. And so I thought like, okay, what is the fastest way that I can learn about this market and whether anyone even wants this product? And then the way that we were thinking about it. So our whole thing for like the first 4 months after launch was only focused on paid media. We only focused on Facebook and Instagram. That's it. Nothing else. I had like 5 landing pages and like a skeleton website, and that's it. I didn't have anything else. And we just hyper focused on that. We got a ton of customers in. I listened to every single call. I looked at every single customer, what segment, what was their willingness to pay, blah, blah, all of that stuff. And in 4 months, we'd already made $4 million. And like we knew who's good for us and who's not good for us. Right. And like that is the fast feedback loop that we were looking for. Now, this is the gold rush that hit, right? Like I placed a bet and that first river panned out. It's very likely that it won't always work out like that. It may not, right? And then I have to like quickly move on and then I stink. Yeah. But in the first month, we already had like lots of like leads coming in. A lot of them were closing. Our conversion was better than we had projected. So we were like, okay, this is good. Let's just like run this playbook for a while. And that was like all we kind of did for the first 18 months. Pretty much just focused on paid media, really, really stellar conversion optimization on the website, and just like bettered our offer in the back end over and over, just like tweaked it ever so slightly, changed our pricing. We experimented with pricing every 6 months. We would grandfather like the previous customers, et cetera, et cetera. So everyone felt like they were getting a good deal. And that was the name of the game. So that's an example of like explore and exploit. It would be a very different scenario for a different company, right? They may not have the budget. They may be like a Series C company where like they already have like all of this stuff in place and now they're actually looking for like new channels and opportunities. And so that framework can just be applied to all of these situations. The one cheat sheet I'll share on that is that I'm actually going to diagram this out because I have it in my head, but it's almost like, how you see like those, if you ever get your like heart monitor checked or whatever, it has like all of the peaks and valleys. And it's sort of like the peaks and valleys are like quite distant when you're like an early stage company. But when you're a later stage company, it's actually like a lot faster. I think you almost have enough like distribution and enough eyeballs that you can get the fastest, right? Yeah. Super, super fast. Yeah, you get super exactly. So you want to just like pivot almost every couple of weeks. You might organize yourself into sprints or whatever works for your team.
Totally. I love that framework. The explore and exploit, we call it shipperate at Pocus, to ship and iterate. So I love it. Get things in the world, test it, and if you're lucky, the first one works, but oftentimes it doesn't. And it's the rate of feedback and the rate of execution.
I love that. Shipperate, trademark that.
Yeah, we should. We definitely should. But Nady, really what I'm hearing from you, like, this is like excellent execution when it comes down to it. It's the speed of execution. It's having the right parameters. It's kind of holding that high bar. How do you, and I know you have a strong belief in like great execution is the only differentiator, especially in startups. So how do you balance the need for speed and really good quality execution when you're in this environment?
Yeah. I think that quality can sometimes be like a misnomer because not always does quality need to take time. I guess it depends what we're talking about, but I'll give an example of let's use a long form guide or ebook as an example, right? Like sometimes companies will take a couple of months to pump something out. You might have a great, point of view, you might have amazing data, whatever, but like, it might even be like a quarter to pump something out. My 2 cents on that is that if you have something important to say, it doesn't have to be perfect before you show it to the world. Just get it out of the world. It has to have like some basic quality parameters. Like it has to be like readable, skimmable, whatever. Like there's some basic stuff that you need to have there. But like put it out sooner rather than later because you'll get like feedback, number one, which will help you improve it. But the time that you lose in getting it to like something that you think is perfection, like let's say like it takes 3 months and now you've pushed something like version A out in a month and a half. That month and a half lead that you have can actually turn into actual dollars. Like there's math behind that that you can do that shows you that. It might not be like the best math. It might not be the most efficient. Maybe some people will be like, oh, I can't believe I gave my email address for the shitty, but whatever, right? Like there's like a whole bunch of stuff that could happen. But it's almost always like I've crunched this so many times, it's almost always better to get it out sooner rather than later. So, yeah, you wanna balance the quality and the speed, but speed almost always trumps quality to some degree. As long as you're committed to making it better over time, and it's the type of thing that you can make better over time. The CEO at ClickUp used to say, like, "We're never gonna send a shitty email," because he was like, "Emails can't be taken back." Which is true. So with emails, we never compromised, right? Because like you can't take that back. But an ebook, a TikTok, whatever, yeah, just like you can delete it, you can edit it, you can do a whole bunch of stuff. So it kind of depends on what it is that you're trying to ship.
It's a great point. It can it be reversible or not?
Yeah.
How bad? Yeah. How if this goes terribly wrong? How big is the risk? And if it's only a couple eyeballs, it does not matter. There's many more eyeballs in the world. Well, I know we're at time. This was awesome. Thank you so much for the super tactical advice and frameworks. And I love your approach to execution and the speed at which you operate. So I really appreciate you being here. And I know that the community, I'm sure, got a ton out of this.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. Thanks for the great questions, everybody. I hope I left you with something cool and fun to Google.